Welcome back. I got a wonderful question from one of my students today. He said, how is Kriya Yoga transforming? How is the original Kriya Yoga of Lahiri Mahasaya, how is it transforming the yogi from the inside out and changing his habit patterns? Wonderful question. Let's get into it. So I think the first thing that we would like to, would be helpful to look at is the path of enlightenment in the brain. If it's going to happen to us, it's probably going to happen in the brain. If we're going to experience it, it's going to have to take place in the brain. And so all of these different parts of the brain are going to be at play. And if we can understand them, it can help us to understand what a process like Kriya Yoga is doing to us in order to enable that enlightenment process in the brain. So this information comes from Todd Murphy and those that he studied with, Michael Pessinger, those who worked on the God helmet. And that research was so profound because in order to track these movements inside of the brain, you actually have to do surgery. And so they did the surgery with those who absolutely needed it, and they took the information at the same time that enables us to understand what parts of the brain are at play in a samadhi or absorption experience. So it's extremely valuable, and I'm so grateful for it. So first of all, the right brain starts to get charged in a deep meditation process. And part of that, this is my addition to all of this, part of that process is also going to charge the corpus callosum between the two hemispheres of the brain. As that gets charged, you're going to have what Lahiri Mahasaya called the first knot experience. And so you're going to feel a very strong magnetic pull at the spiritual eye, or you might feel something at the top of your head, as if the head is opening up perhaps. Or maybe you'll feel a pull or a magnetic sensation at the back of the head, what is often referred to as the bindu. So all of those are happening, if you look at it, through the center line of the brain, between the two hemispheres. And so it's the corpus callosum, that little tissue that connects the two halves of the brain, is getting charged as the right brain gets charged. And so that charge is shooting itself out of the brain because there's no tactile nerves inside of the brain. And so it has to project what it's feeling outside. And so it projects it to the spiritual eye in the front, or the top of the head, or the back of the head. It's a projection. The first knot is a projection of what's happening inside the brain. Isn't that amazing? So as the right brain gets charged, it also, that charge of activity that's taking place also activates the right amygdala. And so this is where we get some of the more scary spiritual experiences when we don't have Lahiri Mahasaya's insurance. So what's taking place with the insurance program that Lahiri Mahasaya has prescribed for us in the process of Om Japa is we are minimizing the right amygdala. They did a study with cab drivers in New York City, and they found that their right brain was enlarged. It had actually grown bigger, like a muscle that you work out day after day gets bigger. In the same way, the cab driver's right brain was bigger and heavier than a normal person's because they were constantly doing spatial analysis of New York, downtown New York, and how to get through traffic and at different times and different places. And all of that spatial computing day after day made the right brain bigger and heavier. Isn't that amazing? And so in this process of Kriya Yoga, where we do the Om Japa, because Lahiri Mahasaya made it very, very clear that Kriya Yoga without Om Japa is tamasic, leading to negative results. That's what tamasic means. And so with the Om Japa, we are doing something very, very dynamic inside of the chakras, and we are cleaning them out. The limbic brain is reflected in the body in the form of chakras. The limbic brain is projecting itself through the central nervous system, and we're using that as a handle to create change and chanting Om into the chakra. And as we do that, we are cleaning out the negative material from the limbic brain. And that has an effect on the right amygdala, which is the center of doom and all negative emotions. So as we clean that out and clean that out and clean that out, day after day after day of doing Om Japa in the chakras, we are minimizing the right amygdala. And just like the cab drivers, because we're not using it, the body is so economical and so wise. It says, well, we're not using this, so why don't we just shrink it? So we are physically shrinking the right amygdala. Isn't that amazing? So the pathway of enlightenment goes like this. We are activating the right brain, and that will shoot itself into the right amygdala, because the two are grown together. And as it does so, if the right amygdala, if we've done our homework, if we've done our insurance policy, then the right amygdala is shrunk and it's easy to jump past. And so the charge very quickly jumps over the right amygdala, crosses over the commissure, and goes directly into the left amygdala, which is the center of bliss and joy and ecstasy and pure love, like an overwhelming avalanche of it. That is the pure experience of the left amygdala. So now we have expansion in the right hippocampus of the brain, and we have bliss in the left amygdala. So now we have the very best of both worlds, and we enter into a new phase of therapy. We started off with the Om Japa and the heart rate variability resonance that's putting the body into a low idle state. That's our first therapy. And eventually we get into samadhi therapy. And that therapy begins to recompute who and what we think we are. And that all begins with the expansion and the bliss at the same time. Those two are what all the yogis tell us over and over again equates to the experience of samadhi. That we have expansion and deep bliss at the same time. And this is what activates both hemispheres of the brain simultaneously. All of our lives, we're either in the right brain or the left brain, or we're using the right brain or we're using the left brain. Back and forth, over and over. But only in this experience of absorption and samadhi do we have both hemispheres of the brain working together in this very, very particular way, which is expansion and bliss. So all of this process of Om Japa in the chakras, therapy on ourselves, day after day, always choosing the less explosive reaction as we are able, right? If I see myself and I've got two choices, I could blow up or I could just simmer down and do some Om Japa into my chakras. Which one am I going to choose? Well, I'm going to choose the Om Japa over and over and over again, because I know it's going to truncate that right amygdala response, that fear and doom response. And so this is why Babaji told Lahiri Mahasaya, he said, even a little practice of this dharma will save you from great fear. So even just a little practice of Om Japa in the chakras every day, over and over again, is guaranteed to shrink your amygdala over time. And so the things that used to bother you won't bother you anymore. You become more and more free to have clarity in every moment of your life, to see things as a little bit more removed, a little bit more from the right brain perspective, a little bit less personal, because you're not so hunkered down and afraid anymore. When I do timeline therapy, we float up above and before the very first instance of anger, or the very first instance when I started to believe something negative about myself. And because we're before the very first event, we get this perspective like never before. We get all the way back before the very first event and we look towards now, and that's when we get the glorious perspective of the right brain. We see things mapped out in front of us, and we don't have to be involved in it because we're before it. It hasn't happened yet, has it? And that gives us this glorious perspective, and that's when the unconscious learnings happen. And the learnings always have to be three things: positive, self, future. So if I get a learning that that guy's a jerk, well, of course, it's not positive self future, is it? Instead, it's about him, and it's nothing to do with the future at all. And it's nothing to do with me. And so it's not really a good learning. But if I learn that I have to have confidence in myself, I have to know what I can and what I cannot do, I have to believe in myself and speak my mind when it's appropriate, then I can deal with somebody in the future that might be aggressive towards me, right? Because I'm okay with myself, right? So that's a positive self-future learning. And that's what we're looking for in timeline therapy. And that is the same process that is happening in the Om Japa in the chakras. So we're cleaning out the limbic brain, we're shrinking the right amygdala. It gives us this glorious perspective on life where we are not overly involved, and our past is not falling down on us in an avalanche, right? So when something takes place, we can react appropriately rather than having all of our past fall down on us at the same time. Because now we're trying to unravel both the situation in front of us and all of this past. That's quite a bit to try and unravel all at once. It was Marcus Aurelius, right, that went into the Gordian knot. And you could see instantly, there's no way I'm going to unravel all of this. So he just took out a sword and he cut the thing, because nothing ever said that it couldn't be undone with a sword. And so he did it that way. And so this Kriya Yoga and this Om Japa in your chakras is this mighty sword that you can take to your whole being to do this continuous therapy, shrink the right amygdala, get more perspective, and then you will get the learnings automatically. One of the greatest signs that you are doing well with the process of Kriya Yoga and Om Japa, that you come out and you feel lighter, that you feel more clean, that things don't bother you as much as they used to. And that seems like, well, that's minor, right? No, it's huge, because it means that it's working. Whatever you are doing it correctly, and you are getting a very positive and powerful result. And so that now you can do more because you know you're doing well with it. And so you can continue that cleaning and that lightening process deeper and deeper into yourself, shrinking that right amygdala more and more, so that whenever that charge comes over the right brain, you're going to absorb more and more deeply into an expansive experience, and the charge will cross over the brain and awaken that left amygdala so that you also have bliss. And that's what will lift you up into the experience of samadhi, from absorption into a samadhi. So I hope that you loved this. If you did, be sure to hit that bell down below so I can see all of